When Paul Walker was just starting his career, some random dude in a yellow Supra took him for a ride. And let's just say it lit a fire under him that turned into an obsession we can all aspire for. You know him, you love him. He loved cars, and let's be honest, probably even more than I do. And he had a dream car collection that I can't help but talk about. In fact, I dream about it. And this one-of-a-kind arsenal has a car that has become synonymous with his spirit. You know what I'm talking about, but we'll get there in the end, so you'll want to stay tuned. And to start this journey, let's talk about a modern American classic, the 2005 reissue Ford GT. Oh, wait, but this is car hero Paul Walker we're talking about. So it wasn't just any Ford GT, it was supercharged. And it had some other characteristics too, like it was the only one of 14 that had no white stripe. And get this, when it was sold for $445,000, it barely had a tick over 2,500 miles on the clock. And let's just say that that is a Ford that I could get behind. And to be honest, getting behind fast Fords was something Paul did a ton of, mostly of the Celine variety. Let's start with the Celine S7. You know it as the car Jim Carrey drives in Bruce Almighty, right? No. Well, it's fast as hell with 500 horsepower in a mid-engine lightweight car. I mean, it better be. And you want your own? Well, there were only ever 1,500 ever made. And the average price is a cool $1.5 million. So start saving your money. A better bet is to get one of Paul's other Celine products, like the 4 Fox body Celine Mustangs, including one special edition Celine SSC, plus a convertible 302, a supercharged 302, and the great looking S351. Which was definitely peak SN95 and a really great value if you want a fast car. But you only have like 25 grand or so to spend. Seriously, people sleep on the Celine tuned Mustangs, and Paul didn't, and you shouldn't either. All done and told, Mr. Walker had about $1.75 million into the American tuning company. I know that the Fast and Furious hero was mostly known as the JDM guy in the series, but that sure is a lot of American muscle. Can't buy this. And there's actually a ton more American muscle, but more on that later. I think that because he did own some truly amazing JDM heroes, like a certain Fast and Furious icon, the Nissan. No, wait. We'll get to that in just a minute. First things first, he owned a Mark IV Supra, just like the one that he drove in the first movie. And this is one of the cars that we've done videos on before, but needless to say, it was a seriously badass ride. I know, I don't need to tell you about the Mark IV. In fact, there's probably 20 people who are Forza experts waiting to correct me, so we just won't go there. What we can say is that apparently the Supra used in the actual movie, owned by Craig Lieberman, must have rubbed off on Paul, because, well, it's rumored that he owned at least 2 before settling on the upgraded single turbo Mark IV that graced his garage for the longest. Before the JDM parade continues, let's talk about Europe. Ferrari. Nestled among the Fords and the JDM beasts, there were Ferraris, like the old school 400i and the oh so classic Testarossa. But what I think is most interesting is the F355 Spider Fiorano. For a lot of people, when they think of Ferrari, they think of the 355. And honestly, if you're into looking great and creating waves wherever you go, a Ferrari 350 Spider is a great way to do it, and you can pick one up for under 100 grand. Now, if you want to be like Mr. Walker though, well, you're gonna have to spend way more for the 1999 only special edition Fiorano, which had a ton of Formula One inspired parts. And all told, there was about $250,000 worth of Ferraris sitting in his shop. But like I said, it was mostly American cars in there. We talked about the Celine Mustangs, but my God, man, there were so many more Mustangs. Like $200,000 worth of Mustangs. Now that is pretty much the cost of like one Porsche, so you might not think much of it, but Mustangs are cheap. So in Paul's garage, there was a, well, 93 Mustang Cobra, a Boss 302, an Eleanor Recreation, a 2013 Boss 302 Race Spec, 2013 GT500, and a Shelby GT350 SR. And if you add that all up, that's like 48 cylinders of Ford Pony power. And those are totally overshadowed by the Bavarian power hidden in the garage. Because Paul didn't have 1, not 2, but 7 BMW M3 lightweights. Now, I'm on record for saying that the E46 M3 is the best M3, yet I would definitely love to own just one of these E36 lightweights because they are so unique and they're a highly focused driver's car. I don't even know what you would do with 7 of them, especially since each of them costs roughly $75,000 in today's market, which means, well, you could drive one every day of the week, but since they came in any color that you wanted, as long as it was white, well, no one would ever know that you were driving a different car each day of the week.
That makes sense.
Anyway, that's like the cost of one BMW M1. And he owned one of those as well. And that's another car we like to talk about, and it goes for roughly $500,000. I can't imagine though that the driving experience of the M1 is more than 10 times better than the E36 M3 lightweight. But I'm not Paul Walker and I haven't driven both, so who knows? And rounding out the fleet of Bavarian monsters, Paul had an 850 CSI, a real E30 M3, and something he was very, very, very fond of, an original 2002 Touring Alpina, which is one of those cars that you really don't hear a lot about, but it was absolutely necessary for BMW to evolve into what it has become today. And the German love doesn't end with BMW. No, there were also a handful of Porsches. And it's hard to talk about Porsches since they are so closely tied to his final moments, but the truth is, if you saw Paul at a track where he did spend quite a bit of his time, it was probably in one of the greatest driving cars ever built. And I would know, it's a Porsche 911. He owned a 996 convertible and a 996 turbo. I just can't believe there was someone else out there like me that likes 996s. I mean, truly a man after my own heart. He also, okay, I'm fanboying a little bit, but he also had a stunning 911E and a 930 slant nose turbo, which is just one of the best looking Porsches ever made, as well as a track focused, totally awesome 911 GT3 RS, which is the Porsche to own if you're a track junkie. All done and told, there was about $1.8 million worth of precise German engineering gracing his shop. Honestly, I'm about all of it because we haven't even covered all the American V8 power plants yet. And baby, you know that I love some good old classic American muscle. I just wish that I had the $300,000 required to have the pure America represented in the collection, including a first-gen Corvette, which is something that is just cool for the history, even if it's not really a performer. Plus a pro touring Camaro, another old Camaro, a 69 Z28, an Impala SS, 3 wagons, and now that I know I have Squid's attention, including a Mercury Voyager, a Chevy Nova wagon, which had a modern LS in it, and a 64 big block Chevelle wagon, which, let's just be honest for a second, who doesn't want a big block Chevelle wagon? It's like the ultimate family hauler slash quarter mile slayer. Cap it off with a piece of old school luxury in the form of a Lincoln Continental, which I can't say is something I would choose, but sure. I get if you have everything else, why not? Me? Well, I definitely go for one of the more expensive cars in the entire inventory. Behind the Celine S7, there is the car that's pretty much responsible for Celine in the first place, the legendary Shelby Cobra. Paul's was a 1965 in cherry red with tan interior, and it was one of 14 CSX 1000 series cars, making it both rare because it's a real Cobra and extra rare because it's a numbers matching 427. Oh, and it had 15 miles. It's not a typo, 15. But the most mind-blowing thing, it only sold for $395,000. And that honestly sounds like an absolute steal for what it is. And his collection wasn't all rare and unique cars, mind you. He did have some actual practical dailies, like an F-150 Lightning, pretty much exactly the same one that he drove to get that awful tasting tuna in the first movie, as well as some cars that are, well, a little offbeat for a nice car collection. I mean, don't get me wrong, a B5 Audi S4, it's a great car, which so is an RS6 Avant, which Paul owned both. But compared to a 911 Turbo, a Mercedes 560 SL is a yawner. We'll warn you against getting a Maserati Quattroporte like Paul did. An old Bronco is cool, but doesn't seem to fit the theme. The Rolls-Royce Ghost just seems kind of excessive. I don't think I'd have a Ghost in my garage. I'd like to focus on cars that are a little bit more fun to drive. And there is this one weird exception, and that's the Volvo P1800. I really didn't know much about this car or even that it existed until we did this video on cars that last forever. which you can check out up here, but it looks really good. It was a sports car made by Volvo in 1961 and really kind of reminds me of a 50s Maserati. And that might be because it was designed by the lead student of Maserati's lead designer in the era. So yeah, it's kind of cool. And it's the only car in this weird bunch worth a pretty penny at $500,000. All of this talk of expensive cars, it's got me hankering for something I can actually afford. Maybe something super practical like a truck. You know, everyone needs a truck. And our hero Paul had not one, two, but three. I guess he could help his friends move and get all that pizza whenever he needed it. These are definitely the cheapest vehicles in his collection. Like there's an 03 F250, an 04 GMC Sierra 1500, and my pick, an 06 Tundra. Because hey, sometimes you gotta move stuff around or go pick up a motorcycle. While he's no Ewan McGregor, Paul was known to be a student of the two-wheeled Zen, and he owned some pretty standard bikes. You know, I'd expect to see a 52 Vincent Black Lightning. Instead, it's just some modern enduro from BMW, the F800 GS. A nice sumo, or maybe not, it might be on knobbies, in the form of a Suzuki DR650. And of course, an 05 Harley Heritage Softail to go with his F150 Lightning. That's like 25 grand in motorcycles, which is pretty underwhelming. And fine, I know you're all here waiting for one thing, and it is the Skyline. And let's start with the Skyline that you and me can own if we have enough money. And so, yes, Paul owned an R32, AKA Godzilla, which is a car that we thought was good enough that we would put on a t-shirt. And you can go buy one and wear it at your next car meet. And I guarantee you're gonna get some compliments on it. Along with the beautiful R32 GT-R, Paul also had an S15 Silvia, which, dang, I just want to have his ability to import things. And a 370Z and an Altima. Huh? I guess someone found an old Altima in his shop and they weren't sure if it was just someone else's ride that broke down nearby and he stored it for him. Whatever, I won't judge. There is easily 80 grand worth of JDM Legends in there. And it's something I'm sure any squid would love to have in their front yard. But honestly, everything we've been talking about so far is just peanuts compared to the R34 Skyline GT-R Spec V. I mean, of course he had one. It's the car they literally used in the Fast and Furious movies to represent the icon himself, and it is glorious. While the BMW 2002 Alpina might have been his favorite car to work on, and he drove the Porsches more, the quasi-legally imported Nissan R34 Skyline Spec V, was the car that became most associated with the star. And what a car. The V-Spec trim is the ultimate homologation special, tuned by Nissan and used in racing. So you take an already amazing car, hand it to one of the best tuning companies on earth, and then have it make its way to the garage of a true car guy. Someone that we can feel good idolizing because he wasn't just some faker, and someone that is just right there in our hearts. And that is the collection. It is one of the best collections here in the States, or was. Sadly, most of them have been sold off over the years, but to this day, it stands as a testament to the kind of guy Paul Walker was, a real car enthusiast. Okay, you guys, I hope you enjoyed that video about Paul Walker and his incredible car collection. We here at Ideal love Ideal cars just as much as you do. So if you want to help support the channel, snag a tee, subscribe, turn on that notification bell, so we have a ton more quality content coming at you. I'm Brad Danger, this is Ideal Cars, and promise me one thing, keep living the ideal lifestyle.